head-to-head. Is there an edge for one player over the other in terms of lineups as we get ready for this Rogue versus Warrior?
It's honestly a little bit difficult to say because it does just depend on the matchups. I do think though that the control decks have been working out for the other players that have been bringing this kind of full control lineup plus mage is a paladin, N'Zoth paladin. Just because, you know, we're seeing Eddie have success, Luna have success, very similar lineups to what Fled's bringing. And they've been playing against a lot of lnguagehackr-esque type players. But if lnguagehackr gets some good matchups, he could, you know, like get a win with Priest against something that isn't Warlock, and then corner like N'Zoth paladin with the Miracle Rogue or the Rush Warrior. So I do think there's an opening for him. I would give a slight favorite to Fled, but not by much.
Okay, well, Fled starting off with the armor vendor, keeping the brawl, recognizing that he might need that AoE to deal with the Rogue board. But Rogue likes to explode out at different intervals, depending on the efficient Octobot and how much mana discount it can get with effectiveness. As we do have the armor vendor already starting to grab some of that board control. When you look at Control Warrior stats, it doesn't look very good on paper, but it has some matchups that it's great against. Rogue doesn't seem to be super one-sided one way or the other. It does feel like, if you look at the baseline stats, it's pretty even. But then it starts to become very Warrior favorite with the more you climb up the legend ranks. So I am curious to see if lnguagehackr has a specific game plan, because I feel like Control Warriors at the top end of Legend to get very good at learning how to utilize their removal to make it really painful for Rogue, and of course put themselves out of combo range to ensure they Alex draws it to get them.
Yeah, it's important, especially when you're playing against decks that do have like multiple win conditions or multiple ways to kill you or multiple waves of threats, that you know, you understand how to layer your removal and not just play your card as soon as you get it, as soon as it can remove something, but understand when the right time to go for it is. And I think that's like what separates Control Warrior players from top ranks to lower ranks. lnguagehackr, great start here with the Rogue, has Octobot discount with field contact plus lots of ways to draw with the field contact. I don't think it's time now to go for the field contact because you obviously would only get a maximum of 2 cards with 2 discovered spells from Wand Thief. Could end up just going for a Shadow Step on the Octobot and then replaying it again, because there's really not many things that can challenge it at 3 mana, right? They don't, that wouldn't proc the discount. Athletic Studies wasn't played, which means that like Kargath Blade Fist wouldn't answer it. There's no 3 mana weapon. Lord Brav wouldn't be able to answer it right away. It wouldn't be damaged, so Coerce couldn't answer it, right? Bladestorm would still give it over its value. I guess Shield Slam would be the only one, but if you see a Shield Slam on an Octobot, then you're pretty happy about that. But I think that's play might be a little bit too fancy. I think he can go for enough card draw as it is on this following turn to warrant just holding on to it.
lnguagehackr finds Evocation off his Wand Thief, having the ability to Shadow Step the field concept to keep his card draw source going. The one way that Miracle Rogue can always get ahead of its opponent is just to out-resource and out-tempo their opponent. You don't have to go for the big combo damage to finish out. Has Kazak is ready to go in 4. After much deliberation, Fled chose to go for the Corsair Cash, getting the Outrider's Axe. I think he too feels the pinch of not having the right removal for the right time. Control Warrior does have limitations with its removal, in the sense that sometimes you get pushed into a situation where you have to use things suboptimally. If it's a 3-minion board and you feel like you have to brawl, it feels bad. And your opponent's going to constantly look for that kind of opportunity. lnguagehackr Plays the Kazakis, looking for, looks like to be a 5-mana cost. Has the sturdy option Divine Shield, has the ability to Grom's Blood or Wild Vine. Very solid ability to build upon his existing board. Hard to really pass up either of those options, really. If you're trying to think about what wins you the game, that's the kind of stuff that gets you there.
Yeah, those were a lot of great options from the Kazakis there. I assume he would have picked Divine Shield plus Summon a Copy, just because your board doesn't live that often. You're not like able to capitalize on boards. Fled's gonna see Kazakis and immediately try and clean up as much as he can. So just having a single card refill is incredibly valuable in this matchup.
True.
Although it is weak to Bladestorm by itself. So by like picking +2/+2 to your other minions, you can kind of like play a couple minions and then play the Golem alongside it. Which maybe that's what he chose. To not leave himself super susceptible to just Bladestorm. Or he's just waiting to play it because of the possibility of attack and Bladestorm if it was Summon a Copy. A lot of cards being drawn.
I mean, this is a ton of cards being available. Has the secret passage, so lnguagehackr can even piece together the forbidden combo of the secret passage to either look for cards specifically or to put the evocation cards into his hand, as he has 2 of them right now. Just so much available options for the rogue, which makes it very tricky. More specifically, if he can find a way to discount his hand one more round further with the second Octobot, his hand has some crazy explosive potential. Fled can immediately draw a card first, see what's up. Bladestorm to clear it. Bladestorm has been successfully baited by lnguagehackr. Knew that was likely to be the case. This an opportunity to play Jandis now is.
What makes something real?
Yep, just spare off some
threats.
Yep. Finding the 2 5-drops. Okay. Unfortunately, there's nothing for the Chenchasher to rush into, but a solid minion nonetheless. In this case, a slight buff to Druid the Claw in the new core set ends up being a little convenient, nice, but I think from lnguagehackr's side, there's a little bit of mind games going on what you want to choose, right? Do you choose the obvious minion here to receive the curse from Jandis to die immediately? Or do you go something a little counterintuitive to mess with your opponent's head?
Ever a world where you choose based off which one you'd prefer to Shadow Step?
Choose soon.
I don't know. That's a little bit... I don't know. I feel like everything's a little bit too fancy.
Right. It just feels like you should just choose Druid the Claw, but at this level, that kind of mind game can set up a huge difference, right? Because then Fled, let's say Fled uses, a piece of removal, like if he finds a sword and board, right? And guesses wrong, then he's made an inefficient removal choice.
Yeah.
Hard to say, though. Fled has the ability to play Eye of Cthulhu. Kind of debating if he wants to draw first, I think, is usually what I always debate with the Outrider's Axe. He's got another Outrider's Axe as well in the hand. So candidates for using that charge aggressively.
Eye of Cthulhu seems reasonable here because it will very likely kill off Jandis plus the illusion minion, and then it's just about finding a way to, or hoping that it dealt enough damage so that Outrider's Axe can get there. This is clean though. Does get the Kargas shuffled in as well.
Yep, most important thing for Fled. Have that Kargas available for him to pull out of his deck and gain that armor in the late stages of the game. lnguagehackr picks up the Wand Maker. And yet, despite all of this, TJ, part of me says I'm tempted to Secret Passage here. He has a lot of cards that actually don't necessarily have application, right? Like his combo cards with the Alexstrasza stuff, his field contact whenever he has a full hand, makes me feel like I'd rather fish for the opportunity to get a second Octobot, but at the same time, that wouldn't discount his immediate hand either, so it's a little bit awkward.
Yeah, he also hasn't drawn a Swindle yet, which means that if he has to play any card that draws cards, then he's going to overdraw on the other side of his hand.
It's true.
It's just very awkward. Mask of Cthulhu.
Yeah, is there a Potion of Illusion opportunity as well? I mean, it's something to think about when you have so much value, but I guess that's something that Language Hacker lacks. And you can see that he does end up... Oh, okay, that makes sense. He didn't summon a copy, so he's able to just buff up his board immediately. The uneven healths do make it tricky for Fled to also pick apart. So this was really well done by Language Hacker. I like this a lot.
Though his hand's going to keep getting awkward, though, but at least he empties some cards out of his hand to not run into the problem and can go for Secret Passage to try and play things with a little more tempo, especially like getting Mancrick, right? Trying to get Ogre in, summon it as best as possible in as timely a fashion as possible.
A little bit awkward for Fled to deal with the buffed up Wand Thief. I think Jacker finds Mancrick. Does he want to pull the trigger on any of these cards here? Immediately looks at the field contact. Important to note that he is aware of the Kargath Prime in Fled's hand.
Muzzle their magic.
On through, finds the efficient Octobot. So he has to brace himself for the possibility of this Kargath coming in hot.
Yeah, but probably one of the reasons why I went with this play, because if Kargath comes down, you can kill one and then use the Outrider's Axe to remove another, but still has minions that are going to be pushing on board.
So many options.
Does need, at some point, need to get this hand reduced with the Octobot, but no way to do it right now. Could like play it and then Secret Passage, try and find like the second Guardian Aug Merchant if there is one left. There's not. Prize Plunder could do it.
Yeah, that goes back to the question that we were talking about before, which is you're struggling a little bit with lining up the correct discounts because he'd much prefer to have his entire hand before Secret Passage to get discounted. Brawl leaves up Cult Neophyte. Fled inefficient turn with mana because of the Cult Neophyte. Doesn't matter. You can start to see why the Miracle Rogue can end up struggling in certain positions, but Language Hacker, with that Alexstrasza and the Shadow Step ready to go, can find a way to potentially end the game. What I really like about this is that he can just set this up and chain it into Mask of Cthulhu and use that element of surprise. Burst Fled out of the game.
Or just kill him next turn. Alexstrasza, Tenwu Alexstrasza.
I can take the hit.
Yeah, we know that's not going to be the case, but Work of Aznath comes out. Corsair Cash being played sets at a very strong likelihood, given that the Outrider's Axe had already been drawn.
Yep, but okay, Mask is just sick here, honestly, to deal with the Bulwark. It really is. Is there a way?
What?
And it will guarantee get rid of all the
devastated.
charges.
Should. Yep.
Yep, there you go.
Does.
Kill some minion. Okay.
Fled's End has the ability to War Cash. Not want that weapon. Finds awkward cards, another Outrider's Axe. Maybe it's time to start grinding.
Yep. So, Language Hacker, the question is, how is he going to start setting up lethal? He's got 16 in hand. So he could go like Secret Passage, try and find the Wicked Stabs. And the Wicked Stabs would be 12, plus 16, 28. Over 2 turns could have 30 damage with dagger swings as well, assuming he hits both Wicked Stabs from either the top of the deck or... Oh, and there's an Ogre as well.
Ooh, wait, how much damage is this?
17.
17. No Wicked Stabs. Can he find a way to prep? Do something? Nope, I don't think so.
Give me that.
Nope, no way for him to really get to that because there's no generation of that. I'm trying to think if there's like any way that he can get it this turn. He's gonna go ahead and Secret Passage. Sorry, I meant passage, not prep. There's no prep in this deck list. Finds Wicked Stabs, plural, into the hand. Also, Nessa Van Cleef, what was the last card being played? Was it a weapon? Did he just get the weapon?
No one crosses the uncrossed.
Yeah, it was. That's 3 extra damage. But I don't think it'll really matter that much because I think the combo will cost 7 with Alexstrasza Tenwu, so he can't fit it in the same turn, but it could be a way, like a finishing damage.
In quite an unfortunate series of events too. Fled used a Whirlwind, which would have been great for the Ranker. Even at 5 mana.
So would he survive if he just Kargathed and armored up? That'd be 22. Would leave 8 power on board? No, wouldn't survive. Is there any way to do it?
What now?
What about Shadowhunter Vol'jin and Rancor Shield Slam?
Rancor costs too much.
Oh! Yeah, Rancor costs too much. And yep, that'll do it. It needed to be 10, right? It needed to be 10 Wu.
Yep.
Because if it was 10 Wu, it would gain more armor and then it would just be Alexstrasza, yeah. Whoo! All right.
That was a cool play, though. It was a cool play.
Yeah.
Almost gave Fled a chance to hang in there, but there's just too much pressure. And overall, lnguagehackr did such a good job capitalizing on the weakness of Control Warrior, which is that it can't match the pace of what the Rogue does. You know, ultimately, Rogue's just drawing too many cards, putting out a little bit too many stats. I think his timing was pretty much impeccable across the board from lnguagehackr, recognizing that Fled has to be using these removal pieces. And what makes it kind of sad for Fled's side is that he had multiple ways that he could have gone around it, right? Like, that was a situation where this brawl was okay, but he would much rather have the brawl in a different situation. Not to mention that this Mask of Cthulhu really set him far behind because it removed the board and that weapon, which he was really hoping to bank on. It just feels bad when you lose with Kargath Prime in your hand, ready to go.
Yeah, and I think that Brawl was the spot to use it, right? Because Kargath Prime, it's not just a spell that kills a minion and gains 10 armor. It's a massive body that's on the board. It was buffed by Stage Dive. Even trading over a 3-attack minion at 8 health, lnguagehackr would have to address it some way or another. And so it takes some heat for you the next turn. It gains the 10 armor. And yes, Brawl could be a tough card to use if you don't use it in that spot. But he had plenty of other ways to remove things on the board. Had Heart of Cthulhu for wide board sets as well that was just kind of stuck in the hand for a long time. So maybe getting that 10 armor was the way to go about it. But obviously results oriented. He probably thought, okay, I'm going to set up Bulwark, and then after Bulwark I'll be able to gain the armor from the Kargath and I'll be fine. I have plenty of health to deal with this. The Mask of Cthulhu was the X factor though. So lnguagehackr takes a very impressive victory, honestly, game 1. I like the way he spaced out his threats. Obviously understands how to make things awkward for Control Warrior and did exactly that to Fled. Now moves on to the Control Priest. And does not have Cthulhu, but does have double Onyx Mage Scribe Ysera. It's not the N'Zoth version, it is a more control-oriented version. Instead of board-oriented version. Could be a rough matchup into Control Warrior because Flood does have Cthulhu. Also a rough matchup into Control Warlock, which Flood will now queue.
Yeah. Control Warlock, a really powerful anti-priest deck. If you're able to get that situation that lines up very nicely with Ticketus to just remove the deck and grind them out with Lord Jaraxxus over time. And we've seen it happen actually quite a lot over the years of Hearthstone. It's kind of hard to remember going to the very beginning days back in like 2014, 2015 when we actually saw Lord Jaraxxus commonly played even before the rework to make him into a hero card where Jaraxxus would just be this like definitive late game card that would make all other control decks feel like it was on a timer. So that still exists right now, and I'm really looking forward to see some more Warlock action. So far, Warlock has been one of the unsung heroes of certain lineups. If you look at Week 6, Warlock was the highest win rate deck into last week, you know, and it feels like one of these classes that are kind of going under the radar. It does feel like the more people play it, though, obviously the win rate would drop because no deck is that much better than, or no class is that much better than the second place. You know, like Warlock clocking in almost a 60% win rate. That's just not sustainable. But it is something that is for a conversation piece, TJ. It's interesting to think about because I know that there's been a fair share of Warlock hate, you know, primarily by the Europe caster. They're like saying that Warlock they think is bad, and they think it's a wrong choice to bring, and some other very strong opinions.
How dare they?
Oh, yeah, honestly, the nerve.
I know. They need to just start casting a real region, and then they'll understand what Warlock is.
True.
Warlock.
TJ, I just want to point out there,
good players.
We've lost 0 world champions this season in Grandmasters in Americas.
That's right.
Pointing out facts.
To be fair, so have they.
Yeah, but they feel like they crown world champions all the time, and they claim people to be world champions. They're like, well, this person should be a world champion. That's just what they do.
Okay. Well, this is a sad hand for lnguagehackr.
Yeah, it's definitely not a great start here. Condemn is not very powerful against a deck that likes to draw a bunch of cards and then play an 8/8 that destroys half your deck. Fled, discovering potential cards to give him the answers to Priest or to disrupt it. Wicked Whispers, Hysteria, Drain Soul. None of these really stand out at the moment. Already has a lot of removal in hand already as well. I guess the diversity of options is good. But we're going to see a lot of this slow posturing going on. Not really much damage or pressure. Just a lot of like, well, I'm going to set myself up for the resource battle later on. So I do anticipate a lot more passivity here. If there's an opening for lnguagehackr, I'm sure he's going to try to take it, though.
Yeah, but win condition for both players is weirdly fatigue, right? You would think that Warlock would have a significant advantage, which is true because of Ticketus. But if Ticketus comes super late, or if the Warlock's forced to draw a lot of cards before they find it, I mean, this is a great hand to be able to do it with. Sociologist Militia, best card to be able to activate Ticketus with because it comes down on 7. Usually gives you board, so you're safe to just play an 8/8. Just needs the Soul Fragments to be able to get value out of it, and has Spirit Journal, Lucky Soul Hoarder, so should be just a nice fine curve. The next step in that puzzle to defeat Priest is, of course, the Jaraxxus. And if Fled's able to find that in a timely fashion, this matchup should be relatively easy for him. Iron Lucia, not the greatest card in the matchup. You'd think, oh, you could just steal Ticketus. Well, as soon as it's corrupted, your ability to steal Ticketus no longer exists. because you can play it, but you'll still be destroying cards from your own deck. Your only hope is to try and Mind Render Lucia before Ticketus is corrupted, which means that the Warlock would have to have not played anything that costs 7 or more all the way up until turn 9, which is very unlikely.
Yeah, considering how big of a priority it is for the Warlock to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm in agreement with you, TJ. Although Fled's life total isn't exactly in the most comfortable spots. He's staring at 5, he's at 18. Almost inviting more pain. Correct. Language hacker. Raise the eyebrows. Okay. Pass. Not much going on. Makes me wonder if Language Hacker wants to play Mind Render Lucia to freeze the turn of his opponent. But he does actually have incidentally good tools against himself in the form of the Flashy on the Zyrella.
Yeah. Well, he could go Apotheosis on... Oh, no. He'd be left with nothing. Like, he could go Apotheosis Flash Heal. And then... Oh, no, he couldn't because then he could miner it. Yeah, he'd just be left with absolutely nothing. I don't think he can...
Oh, let's think about it for a second. Because Fled would Flash Heal and then Zyrella. Then what? Then he has a 5-4 still left. He's at 16. Hands switch back. He has...
He has a Ysera in 3 turns.
Yeah. It's not the time to Mind Render. It was definitely a cute idea, and I think he thought about it too.
Yeah.
Mind Render, Lucia on the bench still. Sociologist Militia corrupting the Ticketus. And is now the time to consider that, because you could eliminate the threat to your own board by playing Flash Heal and then the Mind Render. But then what do you do? The 3 mana remaining. Fled. Fled's actually praying right now that he doesn't die. I guess he recognizes how close he is to stabilizing in this game.
Yeah. I think Language Hacker just goes heal Fled's face, Zyrella. And then push 5 more, has 9 damage on board. Has it like an Apotheosis out for lethal? Or like a Sethic plus something out for lethal? I mean, this is kind of close.
Quickly.
Yeah.
All right. Might look a little bit weird.
Oh, he's going to play the Sethic.
Healing
so this does set up lethal, so he can't play Ticketus.
Oh, yeah. The extra 2 damage is relevant here. So he has to remove the board instead. And he has a couple of ways to go about it. One, just use the Cascading Disaster. I believe it's not fully corrupted. Or actually, I believe...
No, it's not. It's just one from the... Right? Just from the Sociologist Militia?
I think so.
But the issue is like delaying Ticketus doesn't really do much. I feel like eventually he's going to have an opportunity to play Ticketus.
What about Tamsin Rome, School Spirits Hysteria? Does that work? No, it doesn't have enough mana to do that. That's an incredible amount of mana that is required to do that. Either way, removing part of the board will still make it very difficult for the priest to finish out the game. Surprisingly close. If Language Hacker actually had just a little bit more mana and a little bit more damage, has a way to finally get around it. We talked about how Mind Render Lucia timing could be everything. Still doesn't have enough to get to the Ticketus right now, but can delay it. More importantly, he's stopping the removal options for Fled.
And it sets up lethal.
Sets up lethal again.
Yeah, so this is very nice. Hysteria. I mean, it's...
No, but he has Ysera next turn.
Oh, Ysera plus Nightmare next turn.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
More? Siphon Soul? Not cheap enough.
Not enough. What about Soul Shear? Not enough either.
3. Yeah.
Oh, this was sick.
He's staring at the Ysera, recognizing what happens next turn. Is there a tap? Can he like Soul Fragment back up? Soul Shear's 1 mana.
But it's the Priest deck, so he'd
oh, you're right.
Maximum amount of life he could get is 4. I mean, he could tap for like Renew and then still be dead.
Focused. Well, no, it's because he gets Warlock spells. This is such
He's dead.
Situation.
He's dead.
That's
insane.
Whoa, let's go, Language Hacker 2-0. Priest defeats the Control Warlock in
He just killed him.
Set.
He just killed him.
One of the most one-sided matchups that you can imagine. At Legend, it's an 80-20% favorite for Warlock, and you're telling me that Language Hacker is able to do that in a very polarized probability where Language Hacker is unfavored. He is able to aggress fast enough to pressure Fled. A little bit of emotes back and forth too. Oh, it's just poetic. Throwing back the thank you right back at Fled's face. Love to see it. Language Hacker 1 game away from winning the series and going to a top 4. That was a very tough spot, but you gotta tip your cap to Language Hacker. I think Mihai did a great job pulling himself out of a situation that looked extremely difficult and honestly a pretty good hand from Warlock.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hand you usually want against Priest, but the hand that you usually want against a traditional Priest start. Language Hacker had this awful Priest start, and then it worked for him. And he timed it perfectly, right? He had the ability to like Mind Render a little bit earlier to try and set up this weird 2-turn, but timing it so that it would flip back and he would get Ysera and a minion stuck on the board would mean that he would have lethal in every situation was just fantastic. Great game from him. I think a lot of players never win that game. Most players never win that game. Language Hacker wins that game.
Yeah. Language Hacker does what feels like the impossible, and now we're going to game number 3. Fled. Honestly, it looked like he was pretty shaken up by it too, just recognizing that he was completely powerless. And yet another use case of Mind Render Lucia showing why she can be such a destructive force in the right situation. It's more the fact that it was just shutting off the amount of responses from the opponent as we look at the N'Zoth Paladin. We talked about this deck. We'll talk about it a little bit because I still want to spend some time reminiscing of what we just witnessed, TJ. That was a Venomous Scorpion that survived since turn 3. That smacked every single turn it possibly can and got buffed by stuff. Just such an unusual series of events that you don't get to see every day. That was a special game that you all just witnessed. The more needs to be said. Let's talk about game number 3 here. Warrior versus Paladin. Now, the N'Zoth Paladin has had some good draws. It's also had some awkward draws. Which version will show up for this game? Ooh. Sunglasses come off from Fled. As the gloves come off as well.
It's a pretty good start. It's got a curve. 1-2 into coin 4 potentially. I wonder if without secrets in hand it's going to throw away the Northwatch commander, but at the very least it is just a 3-4 and has incredibly high upside by keeping it in the hand. He's trying to convince himself whether or not this 4-keep is correct, I think.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Oh, wow.
Language Hacker gets...
No, Kazaka's keep.
Yeah. Actually, that is quite interesting. Considering that Kazakus comes at an inflection point that forces your opponent to respond, and you with like a strong 5-drop, and you can usually answer it with a strong golem. Fled sees the imprisoned Gnarg, and he's already on tilt here, seems like. Just like unbelievable. Opponent has the perfect card! Upper card on 2! Into the emote! Strict optimal play from Language Hacker. Poor Fled.
Just gets to kill this thing as well.
Weapons for my master!
I mean, the ETC got a medal, right? Just tempo.
Oh, yeah. Tempo.
I mean, as
Honestly, outside the Alex Straza, a pretty solid hand to back this up, too.
Yeah, because now you have a justification of pushing damage. You have the ability to finish. And Paladin does not heal. As a caster and a fan of Hearthstone Esports, I'm very entertained. As a Hearthstone player myself, I deeply relate and feel for Fled. Sometimes it just feels like, how does Rush Warrior have all the answers? This deck is not supposed to be that consistent at being able to put a 1-2-3 like that together. It can, but it often comes at, you know, a little bit of trade-offs where they're giving up some of the power. In this case, like, Crab Rider doesn't have to play the Samuro. Now can save Samuro for the Run Thaw combo. And gets the additional damage off ETC. Is this just a rush down? Is this a turn 4 concede from Fled? Useless
Dead
secret
draw.
drawn.
Fight back these brutes.
Wow. That's a conditioning. Drawn on 5. Language Hacker says, hey, okay, just wait for a second. Is there a need to play it? Can I instead play Overlord Runthok? Because I can trade very easily into the Northwatch Commander, get the buffs going. He can play the conditioning next turn and have the option of either playing Samuro and the Dark Riders, or he can save that as well for a future turn. These are very interesting inflection points right now in this game for Language Hacker of how he wants to suit up his mid game. And it can't be understated that this ETC has done 10 damage so far to Fled. He's only been attacking with 1-1s and 2-2s. He's at 9 HP.
Oh, man. And, yeah, he's dead.
He's dead. GG.
Wow. What a series. What a series.
Language Hacker has done it 3-0 with an aggressive Rush Warrior to close it off. Aggression was the name of the game this series. Being able to win unfavorables. Superman pose, that's right. Language Hacker stays alive, advances to the top 4. Look, you flex on those Fleds, man. You do it. Well done, Language Hacker.
I feel like that was a long time coming. I think Language Hacker has been actually playing incredibly well thus far this season, and especially in the first couple weeks, when he was the one piloting the Warlock, he got some incredibly bad beats. So it's good to see that, you know, at least in the Warrior game, right? Got a little help.
Great to see.
Certainly a well-played series. And now, with that win, Fled's position doesn't change at all. He was qualified for playoffs. He was still qualified for playoffs. He was never going to reach first or second seed regardless. I'm sure, though, he would have loved to move up in the standings, get that additional money. Language Hacker's now at 10 points, which puts him, he's solidly in 9th with a semifinal appearance tomorrow. There's still a world where Language Hacker qualifies for playoffs. It would require killing all day, losing in his semifinal match,